Hi, today I'll be painting the Death Corps of Krieg from the new Kill Team Octarius box. I'll be using that color, Caliban green from Citadel, and this brush for most of the work. So as you see right there, I base coated with Caliban green just to get a, as the shadow color and the whole base coat for the thing. And you see the backpack and the sniper rifle I used there, painted separately, so it's just easier to paint and stuff. So we start with German field green and English uniform from Vallejo. We're going to be placing them in here and thinning them with some Vallejo airbrush thinner and Vallejo airbrush flow improver, just so it takes a while to dry. So you once have it thinned down, you can use water instead of the airbrush thinner, but I just like the consistency of airbrush thinner. And yeah, so here I'm going to be stippling down the first layer using the color that we just mixed. And this technique of stippling, I'm using it to create a nice texture on the coat, kind of looks like a World War I English uniform. You don't have to worry about the smoothness between the Caliban layer and the mixture that we just made, because we're going to be making a glaze in the next step with Lamia medium. There you can see me leaving the shadows underneath the arm and the armpit and putting on the top shoulders. Yep, that's what it should look like after your stippling. So now in this step, we're going to be using Lamia medium in the original mixture that we just mixed up, just to thin it up and create a light glaze. This is the kind of consistency you're looking for. You can make it a little thicker than that. I may have done it a little light, but all that'll do is make me do more layers. Here I'm going from the Caliban right into the highlight layer we just stippled, and this is creating a nice transition between the Caliban and the mixture we created. So for this next step, we're going to be using German field green and Japanese uniform to create another highlight above that layer mixture that we just did with the German field green. And in this step, you're going to be wanting to go just over the mixture we just did with the field green, because we don't want to cover up all the work we just did. This is just for more highlighting to add more layers to the color. So now that it's done, we're going to be adding Japanese uniform to the same mixture that we just used on the second layer to create the third layer and prepare for the highlights. So you can see every time that we go over the next layer, the area where we paint is getting smaller and smaller. But we're continuing to use the stippling technique to keep that texture. And now we're going to use some pure Japanese uniform to start highlighting. Here we're just going to do it on the edges that's visible from the top the most. You can see I'm still stippling down. I would not use one of your fancy brushes for this. I would use like an older brush or just like a normally priced one. I'm going over the folds here to bring some contrast to the coat. I really like this part of the coat. Looks really cool at the end. Yeah, just going over the highlights to bring that contrast out. Yeah, so now we're going to be going with Ice Yellow and Japanese uniform. And this is where the highlights get a lot smaller since the Ice Yellow is really bright. You don't have to worry so much about mistakes. You can always go over with the past color, or even add some more highlight. Because, you know, in the end, it's just paint. You could always paint over it. It's not that big a deal. And on the edges, I'm also stippling in the highlight. And now we're going to do some pure ice yellow for the brightest highlights. So in a bit here, I'll be showing what the previous model I painted looks like for the finished Kreigsman. And I'll making another video on to paint the other parts for it soon. Alright, in this next part, we're going to be glazing over with Biel-Tan green and Nuln Oil. Just a combination. Here, we're going to be working on the shadows now. So we're going from the mixture we first did, the English Uniform in German Fieldgrey, and we're going to be glazing from that into the shadows to create a darker shadows. You can just thin it up with some Lamia medium. That's the kind of consistency you're aiming for. Maybe something a little thicker too, but oh well. Yeah, just glaze it over. Remember to discharge the extra paint on a paper towel or anything. Doesn't really matter. And now, you know, because I want smoother transition, you don't have to do this step, but I just kind of enjoy using this airbrush. This is the Infinity CR Plus from Harder&steenbeck with a 0.15 millimeter needle. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something, and I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If you liked it, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for some future tutorials. I think next week I'll be making a tutorial on leather or maybe some non-metallic metal. I'll be completing this model throughout a little mini-series. Yeah, thank you for watching.